My name is Emma Williams, and if someone had told me years ago that my entire life would change because of a single stranger on a rainy day in London, I would have laughed. But today, as I sit here writing, I know that every step, every word, every moment brought me closer to him, William Carter. This is our love story. London was grey that morning, as it often is. The sky hung low, heavy with clouds, and the streets smelled of wet stone. I had been late for work, clutching my umbrella in one hand and my coffee in the other, when the wind suddenly betrayed me. In one quick motion, my umbrella flipped inside out, the coffee slipped from my hand, and I stood there helpless, staring at the mess. And then he appeared. "Looks like London's weather is trying to test you," he said, his voice warm, rich, and touched with humor. I looked up, annoyed at first, but then I met his eyes. Green. Bright. Alive. His smile was the kind that could soften the hardest day. He was holding out his umbrella, covering me from the pouring rain. "Here, take this," he offered. "No, I can't," I protested, but he placed it gently into my hand anyway. "You'll catch a cold." "I'm used to the rain," he said with a grin. And before I could even thank him properly, he was already walking away, getting drenched, disappearing into the crowd of umbrellas and rushing commuters. I never even got his name. But something inside me shifted that day. I thought that was it. A small kindness from a stranger. But fate had other plans. 3 days later, while sitting in a small cafe near my office, I heard that same voice again. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" I looked up, stunned. There he was, the stranger from the rain. His green eyes sparkled as though he had recognized me too. "You?" I gasped. "Me," he smiled, sliding into the chair opposite mine. "I believe you still have my umbrella." My cheeks flushed red. I had kept his umbrella neatly folded by my door, intending to return it if I ever saw him again, though deep down I knew I wanted to keep it. It was my only connection to him. "Yes. I still do," I admitted softly. "That's good," he leaned forward. "Now I have a reason to see you again." And just like that, the walls around my heart began to crumble. We exchanged names that day. His was William Carter. He was an architect, passionate about designing buildings that told stories of the people who lived in them. I was a journalist, always chasing words, emotions, and human truths. Our conversation flowed as if we had known each other for years. By the time we finished our coffees, the rain outside had stopped, and so had the storm inside me. Over the next few weeks, William and I met often. Sometimes by chance, sometimes by choice. Coffee turned into walks by the Thames, walks turned into dinners, and dinners turned into long, lingering conversations that stretched into the night. He was unlike anyone I had ever met. Gentle yet strong, playful yet deeply thoughtful. He listened not just to my words, but to the silences between them. He noticed things about me that no one else had. The way I tapped my fingers when nervous. The way I tilted my head when curious. One evening, as we sat on a park bench watching the lights of London flicker against the dark sky, he turned to me. "You know, Emma, sometimes I feel like I've known you long before we met." My heart skipped. I whispered back, I feel the same. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a friendship. It was something more. Something that scared me and thrilled me all at once. Weeks later, William invited me to a small art exhibition. The gallery was quiet, filled with soft music and paintings that told stories of love, loss, and longing. As I stood in front of a painting of two hands reaching for each other across an impossible distance, I felt his presence beside me. "Do you believe love is fate, Emma?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to him, my breath caught in my chest. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I believe in moments that feel like fate." He smiled, stepping closer, so close that I could feel his warmth. "Then this," he said softly, taking my hand in his, "is fate." And before I could reply, his lips brushed against mine, gentle, trembling, yet certain. The world around me disappeared. The gallery, the paintings, the music all faded. All that remained was us, standing there in the middle of our own love story's first chapter. From that day, our love grew like spring after winter. We traveled together to the countryside, to little hidden cafes, to places that felt like our secret worlds. He taught me to slow down, to notice the small beauties of life, the way sunlight danced on water, the laughter of children in a park, the peace of a quiet morning. I, in turn, brought him into my world of words, showing him how stories could preserve memories, how love could live forever in ink and paper. One night, while walking along the Thames, he stopped suddenly and pulled out his sketchbook. "What are you doing?" I laughed. "Sketching this moment," he said seriously. "Because one day, when we're old, I want to remember the exact way you look under these city lights." I stood there, my heart overflowing, realizing I was falling hopelessly, deeply in love. But every love story has its shadows. As much as William and I loved each other, we were not without fears. He was ambitious, often caught up in work. I was insecure, afraid that maybe one day he'd wake up and realize I wasn't enough. One evening, after a particularly long week where he had cancelled 2 of our plans, I broke down. "William, do I even matter to you anymore?" I asked, tears brimming in my eyes. His face fell. He took my hands, his voice trembling. "Emma, you are everything to me. I'm sorry if I've made you feel otherwise. I've been so lost in work because I want to build something for us, for our future." I looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. Still, doubt lingered in my heart, whispering fears of losing him. But love, true love, always fights. And William was ready to fight for us. Love isn't always laughter and sunsets. Sometimes, it's tears and silence. One Friday evening, William and I had plans to celebrate our 3-month anniversary. I had chosen a little Italian restaurant where the candlelight made everything feel magical. I waited at the table, nervously twisting the silver bracelet he had given me, checking my phone again and again. But he didn't come. When my phone finally rang an hour later, his voice was rushed. "Emma, I'm so sorry. The project deadline, my boss needed me. I couldn't leave. The disappointment broke me. You could have at least called earlier, William." Do you know how long I sat there, waiting like a fool? Silence. Then he said, softly, "You're right. I hurt you. And I hate myself for it. I hung up, tears spilling down my cheeks. That night, I wondered if our love could survive the demands of his world and the insecurities of mine. But the next morning, he showed up at my doorstep with flowers in one hand and his sketchbook in the other. "I can't promise I'll be perfect," he said, his voice cracking. "But I promise I'll always come back to you. You're my home, Emma." And just like that, the fight ended, not with apologies alone, but with the truth we were imperfect, but together, we were stronger. Months passed, and our love grew steadier, deeper. One crisp autumn day, William suggested a trip to the countryside. He drove us to a small village in the Cotswolds, where cobblestone streets wound around old cottages covered in ivy. The air smelled of wood smoke and fallen leaves. As the sun set, he led me up a hill overlooking golden fields. My breath caught when I saw what he had prepared: a blanket, a basket of wine and strawberries, and his sketchbook lying open. "Emma," he said, pulling me closer, "do you remember the first time I gave you my umbrella? I thought that was just a small kindness. But it was the start of the greatest journey of my life." He opened the sketchbook. Inside, page after page was filled with drawings of me laughing, reading, staring at the river, sleeping in the passenger seat of his car. And on the last page, written in his messy handwriting, were 4 words. "Will you marry me?" Tears blurred my vision. My voice shook. "Yes, William. 1,000 times, yes." And under the fading autumn sky, he slipped a simple, silver ring onto my finger, sealing a promise that would last a lifetime. The months that followed were filled with excitement. We planned our wedding together, laughing over flower choices, tasting cakes, writing vows late at night while drinking too much coffee. But more than the wedding, we planned our life. A small home with bookshelves overflowing, a garden full of roses, weekend road trips, late night talks, and maybe, someday, children who would inherit his green eyes and my restless heart. It wasn't just a wedding we were preparing for. It was forever. But love stories are not without trials. A month before the wedding, William received a job offer, his dream project in New York. It was everything he had ever worked for. "Emma," he whispered, holding the letter in his trembling hands. "This is huge. But it means moving. Leaving London. Leaving everything." I froze. My entire life, my career, my family, they were all here. Could I give it all up? Could I follow him across the ocean? That night, we argued. For the first time, it wasn't about small misunderstandings. It was about our future. "Emma, I need you with me. I can't do this without you." "And what about me, William? My dreams, my work, my life, do they mean nothing?" Tears flowed, voices rose, and for the first time, I feared we might not survive. But as dawn broke, he pulled me into his arms, his voice breaking. "I'd give it all up for you, Emma. The job, the dream, everything. Because you are my greatest dream." And in that moment, I knew we would find a way. Love was not about choosing one dream over another. It was about building new ones together. The church bells rang on a bright spring morning. My dress flowed like a whisper of silk, and my hands trembled as my father walked me down the aisle. And there he was. William, standing at the altar, his eyes locked on mine, filled with tears he wasn't ashamed to show. When I reached him, he took my hands, his voice steady and full of love as he whispered his vows. Emma, from the moment I saw you, lost in the rain, I knew my heart had found its home. I promise to love you through every storm, every season, every silence, and every song. You are my forever. My voice broke as I spoke mine. William, you are not just the love of my life, you are the life within my love. I promise to stand by you, to laugh with you, to fight with you, and to dream with you. Always. When we kissed, the church erupted in applause. But in that moment, the world narrowed to just us. Husband and wife. Two souls bound by a story that had only just begun. After the wedding, we moved into a small house with ivy climbing its walls. It wasn't grand, but it was ours. The first night, we sat on the floor surrounded by unpacked boxes, eating pizza, and laughing until our stomachs hurt. Life wasn't perfect, it never is. There were arguments, bills, long work days, and moments of doubt. But through it all, we held on to each other. Years later, as I sit in our garden, watching William sketch while the roses bloom around us, I realize something: love isn't about the big moments alone. It's about the small ones, the shared smiles, the late night talks, the comfort of his hand in mine. Our love story wasn't written in the stars. It was written in the rain, in the coffee shop, in the arguments and the laughter, in the choices we made every single day. And if you ask me now whether I believe in fate, I'll smile and say, yes. Because fate gave me him. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.